Thank you all for joining me today. Let's start with, as we're told, just a little bit about me. Everybody can read. Who's more interested in can ask. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Anyway, what we are here for. I want to tell you what we do and why we do it that way. We are in the business of slow. And why is that? It is because we are an SBA partner with two vertical solutions. And vertical solutions and rapid development not always go hand in hand. At least normally when they do, it's not for the best of the solution. We have many installs and many of them are complex. So we always have to care for if a new feature that we put in there is easily updatable to the install base. Our systems are normally CRM systems that are right at the heart of our customers' businesses, so we try to take the utmost care in not disturbing them by improving a solution. What we always need to think about is updatability, is supportability for the next decade, because approximately a customer thinks about changing business cases or changing systems with us first time after 10 years. So before we start thinking about implementing something new, we also have to think about what to avoid, because not doing stuff sometimes is the better idea. We really have to avoid third parties that go out of business, because that is exactly why our customers are using FileMaker solutions, because they are on-prem, they are reliable, and they will be reliable for the next decade for them. And they don't have data with anybody on the web who might go out of business, and all their business data is lost. We try to avoid additional contracting for our customers because we are a solution provider. So if somebody wants a solution, they should not have to contract with anybody else for that. That also means that AI keys and stuff like that is a bit difficult to handle for us, because either it's our accounts, then we have a GDPR issue, or it's their accounts, then it's third-party contracting. So we always have to keep that in mind. In general, we try not to make it difficult for our customers, as a general rule. But of course, sometimes we are tempted to touch stuff because it's just too sexy to avoid it. Those are normally the newest trends or tools. But if they change too much, it conflicts with all the other things I said, because it's not updatable, it's not maintainable, it's too many changes. So we try really to find a balance, what we can do and what we can't. So that begs the question, why are we even here if we don't change anything? But not every nail needs a hammer. It's not that FileMaker can't do anything, or FileMaker is not able to do everything, but do we really have to do it in FileMaker? We can write API calls, we can write inserts from URL, we can learn how to address any of those APIs that are offered to us by all those systems. But do we really have to do that? Because FileMaker or not is the question. And in the end, I think this really sums up our problem or our solution in how we think about our customers. They do not pay for the effort that we put in. They should pay for the solution of their problem. So why make it difficult for us if there is an easier way? So we have to decide when to use what with all those statements in mind. And here comes why we have decided that our automations should be run on n8n. Because we have a ton of integrations at our fingertips. And it can be self-hosted. So we have total control over the install, over the versioning, over the rollout, on-prem, with us, with the customer. No data leaves the system if they don't want to. So this is not only a free tool in the community edition, but it's GDPR compliant on that level that you decide with your customer on every step you take. And if you really need something that is more complex or more team-oriented or more versioning-oriented, there is a paid edition that you can still self-host, and the pricing is comparable to a FileMaker server. It's no problem. If you really have a need for a tool, 1,400 euros a year shouldn't be an issue. And of course, we have not only those nodes, they call them, but we have amazing numbers of ways to string them together. And of course, we all came for that one. But in fact, it's nothing more than just API calls to the data API. So it's much easier to program, but it doesn't involve knowing all the tricks and trades. We'll come to that. There are, of course, some reasons why, even if you really like a tool, sometimes you don't. Because of security issues, if you are not very stringent in where you put it behind your firewall, if you expose it to the web, it is a well-known platform, and well-known platforms tend to have exploits, and I try to be very conscious of not exposing to the web too much. So in my installs, it's always on-prem, the FileMaker server and the n8n server right next to each other. They talk to each other, then n8n talks to other platforms, but wherever I trigger a workflow is internally from FileMaker. Web access to databases, do we want that? Do we have that? Do we need it? Really just expose your databases that you really need to expose, and be certain to have your right setup correctly in your FileMaker databases. You can restrict access to webhooks and all the actions in n8n as well, but it takes a bit of concentrated work not to just brush over it and say, well, it's working, I'm fine. So please keep that in mind. And there is deployment to the customer. That is a bit tricky because you need to put up a second server there. So if you don't have your separate hardware where you can virtualize your FileMaker server and you virtualize your n8n server and whatnot under your control, but you have to deal with a IT department and they have to set it up for you, or you have a customer who's still running directly on the copper. it might be a bit more tricky to keep it running, keep it updated. It's slow. It does its work step by step, but every step takes a bit, and every step is building a connection to another system, doing something, waiting for feedback. So don't expect below second response times in most of the cases. Normally, it's either a job where you send a batch of information there and you can wait until it's done and you don't care, or you have an interaction that is quite fast where you have a call being sent out, n8n confirms that it's got all the data it needs, and then you're fine and you get your data. But be prepared not to have a racehorse there. And sometimes n8n is really tricky to debug, especially in the beginning when you start working with it and you have a node in your workflow that is not doing what it should. The whole workflow stops, you get a nondescript error message, workflow is broken, and then you have to start searching for what's really wrong. So I felt like that sometimes, and you might as well. But there is help, because every node in n8n is just a JSON object. You can click it, you can copy it, you can edit it in a text editor, you can copy it again and repaste it and rewire it, and it all works. It's great. So when you have many fields for matching, or when you have certain aspects of your workflow that you need corrected or rewritten or maybe versionized in your Git, that all works. We can read it, we can correct it, we can paste it. I think that's wonderful. And even more so because ChatGPT is really good in debugging it. ChatGPT knows JavaScript, as you know, and it knows n8n really well. And if you prompt ChatGPT for a node and a function that you need and tell it what general you want to use, or maybe send it sample data, you get a ready-made node or even a ready-made workflow to copy and paste back, and it works. It's amazing. Credentials are dealt with in a separate table. As you see here below, there is pinned data and there is credentials linked to that node. So you don't have to worry to send any credentials to ChatGPT if you just copy and paste it and send it away. Just a bit of gobbledygook referencing your set of credentials. So no worries. So how do you work with n8n? We have the canvas, and on the canvas you have a list of workflows. You can create new workflows here. You have a workflow list. You have a list of your credentials, and those can then be used in one of those workflows doing something. In this case, I was fetching Claris partner information from the web because they have a funny system. Every Claris partner, all of us, have a number on their partner page, and those numbers are consecutive. So you can just look through and get the information and put it in a FileMaker database if you want to. It's really neat. This is similar to an entity relationship graph, but in fact, those entities are not tables, but they are nodes to work with. Each node has a separate function, does one thing and only one thing, repeatedly or not, but only one thing. And stringing them all together is the way you write the script here, basically. You have, that's the editor view that we see here, but that view also has an executions list and an evaluations list. The execution list can be populated. You can switch that off for every workflow, but there you can see what prior executions made with your data. So if you have a workflow coming in and producing an error, you can go to the old execution. In the old executions, you'd have that broken workflow with that broken data. You can look through the nodes and see where the error occurred. It's really neat for debugging. But in a production environment, you would just switch that off and just let it run. In the bottom left, you have very limited tools. Zoom in, zoom out, go back, and clean up your workflow. Cleaning up the workflow for a nerd like me is always a bit like ruining everything, because I like something that looks neat, at least to my eye, and a cleaned up workflow is just all of them in one line. Okay. Not my style. Then you have the workflow executions here at the bottom, or when you have, like here, execute when clicking, that would execute the workflow as well. So the start point can be differentiated. It can be human interaction. It can be an incoming email. It can be a text message. It can be a Slack message. It can be timed, or it can be a webhook. And that's what we normally use because that's the easiest interaction with FileMaker. Then we have those nodes. You can add a new node with the plus, and you get a list of all the node options. They are grouped together in different parts alphabetically here. AI nodes, actions in an app. You have data transformations. You have different ways of flows. Core nodes. You can put a human in the loop, so they wait for basically you can build a workflow where at one point it sends out an email to you and you have to respond to that email with a certain answer, whatever. For example, you get a test email and you have to confirm that it should be sent out to your customer, and then you confirm with OK, and when OK comes back, it would go on in the workflow and wait for your answer in between. You will see in my workflows quite often that there is still a loop in there, which is technically not necessary, because if you send a bunch of data in a list or in separate JSON entities to n8n, it would loop through them on its own. But call me old-fashioned. I like that control and I like that view because if you have a loop, you can put a pause in there, like do that, wait a second, do another, wait a second, because otherwise you might be overwhelming another system and you don't want to DDoS yourself. Just an idea. Those nodes, when they're added, do one action and one action only, like a script step. They can take parameters from any node before. So beware, because when you reference a node in there in a JavaScript line, and you then rename a node, your references might not survive that. Or if you switch out the node, take it away, put another one in because you're still trying and working out how to get there, your workflow breaks because the references to your data is gone. So what you do is you put in nodes like this one, edit fields. Edit fields is like setting variables. And if you put that at the beginning, you like fix all your variables that you have, and you can reference them by a separate name that doesn't change whatever you do afterwards. So it's a bit easier and more stable when you're still working and tinkering with your workflows. And then, of course, we have those connectors in between, and basically they are just flows of data. In FileMaker, we're used to very linear flows of data. Data flows through our scripts, through subscripts, wherever, but it's always a linear motion of data. Here, this linear motion can be changed. Like in old times, I don't know, many of you might still remember basic programming, like go to line 20. It's just the same thing with all the same problems, but it's there. And then, of course, we have the FileMaker nodes, and those are the ones that really interest us here. They look like that. Wonder, oh wonder. And they have a couple of settings here. Not really easily readable, I realize. Basically, they use data API, and that's a bit of a problem. It would be much nicer if they were already using OData, because the data API opens sessions for you. OData wouldn't. And those sessions can be problematic. We have the full CRUD spectrum, create, delete, duplicate, whoever needs that, edit, find records, get records is read, get records by ID, and perform scripts, so we can do anything in FileMaker that we really want to. But of course, the old rules apply. So there must be an accessible layout. Without the layout, it's not working. Fields must be on the layouts, even for scripts, which is a bit strange. Scripts should run without the layout, but they don't. Fields must be on the layouts to be accessible. And don't forget to tinker with your start script of your file, because that might throw you off if you have any other databases that you're referencing in your start script, but your n8n user doesn't have rights there. It would stop your workflow. You have different varieties of parameters in those setups, like whatever you choose at the top, it shows you exactly what it needs in information to perform that task. It's all Dropbox, so when you say, for example, my credentials are for that file, then you get a list of layouts of that file, and you choose one. You don't have to type them. It's all there. Your script names are there. Your field names are there. This is great, but it's also problematic. Because if you want to use your FileMaker nodes for bigger data sets, it's a good idea to think twice how you do it. I tend not to think twice, but experiment, and sometimes that hurts, but it also gives me material for talks like this. Don't try to create or update records with more than 20 fields. More than 20 is a ballpark number. I don't think 21 would break your system. But when you open the dialog and you put in more than 20 fields, one after the other, for every field, it opens a session. Because for every field, it looks up in the drop-down dialog what the field names are that are available. So with 20 sessions already gone, and you're doing that 3 times because you're fixing it and working here and there, and the sessions have a lifetime, they pile up, and once you reach 100, normally your server's gone. So the better idea is to let a script do it. Script parameter, shoot. If you have really big data sets, and in fact it doesn't really have to be data, It just has to be structure that is the problem. I just had a table with more than 500 fields to import into FileMaker from a Microsoft SQL table. Boring as hell. But if you have 500 fields, the JSON gets really big, and that might be too big for your script parameter, which is really annoying. But there is a way for it, because you can put all your script parameter in a temporary field on your record, drop all the data there, and then let the FileMaker script just work with the parameter. And that works like a charm. We are now entering the phase of what we do with it. And I would kindly ask you, if it really, I mean, for me, all of this is fantastic. But if the samples that I'm showing are getting boring for you, or anybody has any questions for it, please interrupt me, okay? So what we do, for example, is we are running a Nextcloud server for our customers. And we use this Nextcloud server to distribute our FileMaker license files, for example, or the latest update files, or whatever. So every user that buys a solution with us gets a Nextcloud account with us. And it's a bit of a pain, always going through them, not forgetting anybody. Sometimes users lose their groups for some reason or the other. There comes an update of Nextcloud and the user groups get lost. So we needed a way to recreate them on the go. So that's our workflow to it. What we do here, we have a webhook, and I'll show you in detail later how a webhook is used. We have a webhook in FileMaker, so you have a script on a button in FileMaker that says update this user or update all users, whatever. This webhook, and that's maybe not the brightest idea, but I think it's a smart way to deal with webhooks. The webhook itself should have, in my opinion, as little information about your solution as possible. So the webhook only triggers n8n to look into a FileMaker database and read it for themselves, whatever they need to perform their task. I do it this way because the webhook potentially could be exposed externally. And the parameters of the webhook are like writing data on a postcard. However good you secure that, I wouldn't trust it. So, yes?
But then if the webhook is triggered...
Wait a sec, Mike?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Yes.
Thank you. But if then the webhook is triggered by an external actor, with few data in the parameter, then I would assume it would trigger, it would start the flow and try to go to that FileMaker to the next step in the flow.
Yes.
So what are we preventing then from limiting the information in the webhook?
You can put a checksum in your webhook parameter on the first hand, checking if the parameter of the webhook is valid. And then, of course, if the webhook triggers the flow to look into your database and it doesn't find anything under that parameter, it wouldn't do anything. And if he finds a user with that parameter, it would read the actual data from the FileMaker database that I have total control over and just do what I would have done anyway, maybe tomorrow. So it's those workflows are oriented in a non-break scenario. So whatever they do, you can run them as often as you might. They just perform what is necessary to keep it running.
Yeah, so you assume that the risk in this particular scenario, if it would happen, the checksum could prevent it, but if it still goes into the FileMaker database, it just executes.
Exactly.
And that's what you consider as a low risk then?
I consider that a non-risk, because even if they trigger it, I have not exposed any data. And I've not created a situation that I wouldn't want to be able to create at any point in time anyway.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So in the web, if it was the other way around, and I put the user's name and the user's email address in the webhook for the parameters that I use afterwards, then I would have exposed something, and then the script could be run externally by faking the webhook. So that's why we look into FileMaker, we generate our variables, we name our fields, then we have a decision to make. Is that user still in use? Then I want to activate him or reactivate him. Is he not in use anymore? Then I delete him. Set to inactive, give feedback to FileMaker, and I'm done. If he's active, I split out his data because he might be a member of multiple groups. So I have to loop through all the groups that he should be in. I loop over those entities. I get the users that are in the group. If he's in the group, I'm done, and I feedback. If he is not in the group, I recreate the group membership and activate him and feedback to FileMaker, and we're done as well. So that's the flow that we're using here. Then, of course, on the other side, it might happen that you have users created in the Nextcloud that are not in our FileMaker database as yet. That's the other flow here. That's just on click, because we normally don't need that. But all the Nextcloud users can be written to our FileMaker database as well, with all their group memberships. So even if it's not one that we wanted to touch specifically, we can update what the real-life scenario is for any of those. The other thing that we use it for is FileMaker license management. As an SBA, and I see that I have to speed up a bit, as an SBA, we have a couple of hundred users that need their FileMaker licenses according to their contracts. So we have to match each user to each company to their license number, or that funny string. And it's a bit of a pain always going to the web page and downloading the file and putting it in a container field or putting it on the server. Then FileMaker updates the version and updates the licensing, and you have to redistribute it and do it all over again. That's fun for 5 users. That's manageable for 10, but it really gets annoying when you reach 100. So this is the chart that we use to do that workflow, and this is unreadable, and therefore we do a demo. Where is it? Here it is. We have here our Nextcloud folder that is distributed to, in this case, to me with all of my customers, but we have the FileMaker certificates here for many of them, and right in the middle, somewhere in here, there should be PB Media, one of the customers, doesn't really matter. This is zoomed too heavily for that screen. Tell me if you can still read it. Not really. Make it full screen, might be better. Let me adjust that for a sec. Displays. And now we can zoom in here. That should be better. Just a bit more. Yes. So we have the workflow here. And we start with a webhook, and you see that little pin here, because that webhook has data pinned to it, because I have a sample data here. And it's the record number 56, and it's a base 72 user, and that's all the information that we need to go on. And we can go to the second node now, and we see that the data from the first node is shown here. We use here a decider if in query source we have the string base 72, because we then either look in one or the other FileMaker database. We have a decision here, and now we have two nodes that we're deciding for, and we already see by the green line, I hope that's visible here, that we have one item to the top FileMaker solution, and when we run the top FileMaker solution, we get data here. And we have our licensing information here that we will be using now. Now we aggregate all the data from both of those sources to fields, meaning that wherever the data came from, we will have them in the same variables, because otherwise you would have to reference in all the future nodes either the one or the other. Aggregating them here puts them all in one pot, and when we have them all in one pot, we can define the variables here, so we can execute now step by step all those nodes to do what we want. That data aggregation here has now taken the information either from the one or the other source. And in our defined variables, we have now defined, better to see in the JSON, we have now defined what the folder for depositing the license file will be, because we can calculate that from the company name. We have the text for the instruction file, and we have a server name, because we need that certificate being deposited on two different levels. Once for our Ansible installations with the name of the server that Ansible uses, so it can look up the certificate there when we set up the server or update it. And the other one is for the customer itself. I can scroll here. So you see now that all of these lines are equally valid, because that data is now used in different branches. n8n works from left to right and from top to bottom. So you don't have to worry that your bottom line is being executed before your top line. You could put that all in one workflow and make them all dependent on each other. But if that's not necessary, because they are not physically depending on each other, you can just split them out like this. So what we do here is we ask Nextcloud for a folder list, because if a folder exists, we don't have to recreate it. So we have our Nextcloud credentials here. we want a source, the operation is list, and we give it a path, and we execute that script step, and we get a path of all the folders in that directory. Now we can aggregate them again and then decide if the customer's folder is already in the folder list or not. If it's in the folder list, I will zoom out a bit because of time constraints, I'm afraid. I will recreate the folder. If it's not in there, via create Nextcloud folder here, folder create, all done. Don't have to do anything more. So that's the beauty of it. Just writing that in all the different API calls in FileMaker gives me a headache. Then I list the groups and make sure that that folder that I just created or that was there is already shared with the group. And if yes, it's all fine. If not, I share it with the group. Another Nextcloud API call. Then I have here a split out for creating the folders for the Ansible installation. So that's all folder management up here on top. And now comes the funny part. Here I create a text file. From the text info file, I can create a text file here. Boom, I have a text file, and this text file can be written to Nextcloud as a binary, and it will be a .txt file there, which is just as easy because you just have file upload and you take the source and put it there and you're fine and done. Where's my mouse? It's so small. Here. But this one was the tricky one because loading the FileMaker license from the web was hard because you need the serial number and the web page where they give you the license file is easily accessible. But then you need to get some information out of there because the file itself is not linked there. This execution takes a while, just as the web page takes a while to open up. We all know that. Now we have all the information from the web page here. Now we can extract from the URL the specific file. So we have the cookies for the link, and with that, finally, we can recreate the download link because the download link is not exposed directly. And we do a get command over HTTPS and recreate the cookies here. And by executing this, I will get my license file in some time. In some time. Here we have it. And when we now push that through to FileMaker, I will now let the full workflow run through, and we will see the result in a second. But as time constraints are a bit tighter than I expected, I will go back to my presentation and give you the last few slides. Here we go. Escape, that was the wrong page. We were already down here. What's the biggest issues that you will be able to fall into? First of all is because you're cheap. If you're cheap, you have constraints that n8n puts on you because every user has their own set of credentials. And that is fine and smart, but sharing your credentials is a paid service. And just because you see credentials doesn't mean you can use them. Every user has their own workflows, same thing. And just because you see them doesn't mean you can use them. But of course, sharing is a licensing feature. If you are a small team or working not all together in the same workflows, you can co-share one user in n8n, works like a charm, but updating and upgrading is advisable. Credentials go wrong often. Error handling in the nodes is sometimes a pain. Also because in every node you have a setting that a node should stop working and stop the whole workflow if one node fails. But a node failing doesn't mean it really failed. It just means that, for example, when you ask Nextcloud to create a folder that is already there, the node has failed, but you would be happy just going on. Data changes, as mentioned before, in your workflow that break your naming of the variables. Working left to right, top to bottom, always keep that in mind. If you mix that up or if you don't follow the path of data, you will be unhappy. Data preparation, splitting out, looping, collecting data is sometimes tricky if you, like me, don't have an IT study background and FileMaker is the only thing you can do really well. Then this might be something that you get your friend to work on or make ChatGPT write it for you. And of course, as we heard before, AI and n8n is a marriage made in Berlin because n8n is a German development. You have those funny agent nodes and you can do of things with them, really impressive. But if you really want to go in depth with that, this is still too volatile for us. And I will not be an expert in that in the foreseeable future. That's why I haven't touched it yet here. We see some issues with reliability as all AI is guesswork and we are in the business of fixed information, as FileMaker databases usually are. Most demos that you see online somewhere give you an idea what can be done, not what is being done. So it all looks really impressive. But if you try to recreate that, sometimes it's not. For further information on those, please refer to the session today in the morning, or to Marcel Moret, who has done quite a bit of work on n8n and AI integration. Please ask them, not me. I'm not the expert. And with that, that's all for today, and we're on point. 3 minutes late is not on point, some might say, and we can have a look at the download here in the Nextcloud folder, which should be here, and which should be, yes, it is very small, indeed, which should be here. And we have the PB Media folder here with the license certificate, and it all worked fine, and everybody's happy. Thank you.